Do you have a favorite?
Not meant to. But mostly the unloved ones, the unvisited ones, the cases that get dusty and ignored. All the broken and shunned creatures. Someone's got to care for them. Who shall it be if not us?
Yes.
Welcome to Rune Soup, a weekly podcast about magic, culture, and the very best new and old ideas for living in this world. Coming to you from 43 degrees south on a small farm in deepest Tasmania. My name is Gordon, and I shall be your host. This week, we welcome back to the show one of my absolute favourite returning guests, Camelia Elias. She joins us today to talk about the recently published second book in her Read Like the Devil series, which is on fortune-telling with playing cards, one of my absolute favourite things to do. So we chat about significators, suit associations, what questions are better at responding to with playing cards versus tarot, what spreads work best with what, and all that good stuff. Enjoy. I know I did. Camelia, the Queen of Spades herself, welcome back.
Queen of Spades, my ass. But yeah, sure, whatever label is thrown at me, I'll take it.
If we were going to be talking about tarot, and we will at some stage, it's Queen of Swords because you do have lots of swords. But the latest book is playing cards, so I had to go. I mean, we could do Spanish. Yeah. We could do Spanish cards, and it's still Queen of Swords again.
Absolutely, yeah. Well, it's true, and some people say, man, ego knows no bounds. And I was like, you're so right about that one, like who has bounds for that one? Nobody. And it's also a good thing. But because of the covers, so somebody was asking me why I chose to have myself on the cover, on the covers of the trilogy books. The first one was about the Marseille Tarot, and then now the playing cards. So I have some shots, impromptu shots, you could argue, because they all come from a Buto dance. Sometimes I just enjoy my own Zendo, private meditation place up here. I live in a huge house. So I have a very big room dedicated to that, so sometimes I just dance, I imagine having a conversation with the dead soul of Hijikata Tatsumi, so whatever he does, I'm like, I can also do that. So I took a few stills from those Buto dances, and then and for some reason I thought, if I should have something that's just the thing, for the cover, then it should be those stills connected with the relevant cards. So on the first I have a picture of myself, rather a still, because it was all recorded. So a still from that dance, and I have the devil card, of course, to go the Read Like the Devil signature. That's the trilogy name. And then on the second volume here, I have the Queen of Spades. So sure enough, I will identify. Let's just say I will identify for once. Now I've been on your show a few times before, so I think maybe your listeners already know where I come from. So
they do. I told a few of them. Yeah. I told a few of them, this is going to be a good chat, because a lot of them love playing cards. Like,
I don't know, maybe some think I'm just being provocative for the sake of being provocative. I don't know. It's like, I blame it on my Zen, my Zen inclination. So I just do what I do in the here and now. So, so if we talk about playing cards, and then the approach, the martial arts approach, my general approach to reading the cards, so there is a lot of cutting and slashing and slaying of dragons, or maybe not that one, because I happen to be good friends with dragons. So I don't want to slay any, but so I guess I'm trying just to establish a red thread, if you like, so to go do the cliches, and go these labels, that are very stereotypical of the fortune teller, the fortune teller being identified par excellence with the Queen of Spades or the Queen of Swords. Although You have been in my classes, so I don't know. You can testify. do I slash a few throats? I like to think that I do
Oh,
because
definitely.
I'm invested in teaching. I'm not invested in any heuristics of dictation or pedagogics of dictation. My books reflect very much this approach. I'm interested in teaching. Actually, like this is the thing. Here is how you do it, and even if you don't follow the instruction, here is a sword for you that can chop a few of your limbs. So that bring your attention to where attention is due. So I don't have a problem with embodying, let's just say, that kind of stereotypical force, of the woman with a sword.
Well, so I think about it. It's interesting because I was going to talk about. We'll just do it now. We're going to talk about significators in playing cards anyway, and technically, you can't be the queen of spades because of your complexion, right? So you can't if you're in the deck and it shows up, you wouldn't be in a playing card reading the queen of spades. But I wonder if that's one of those rules that isn't a rule, because you do actually own swords. So if I was reading for someone, I said, do you know a woman who owns a bunch of swords? And it would be, well, actually I do, there's this woman Camelia, and I'm like, well, there she is in the cards, right? So I think you're a special case where you can jump out of the significator rules. Maybe.
Well, you know how it is with rules. Rules are good to follow, you see, and but then at the same time, if you have any ambitions to be a master of any caliber, then you'll also realize the wisdom, which is that a rule is a rule until it's not anymore, So the question is more about, knowing the momentum, So as a martial artist, I'm very interested in knowing when the time is right to do something, to charge, to go against and to yield power and all that stuff. I do nothing else for a living than read martial arts war manuals, if you ask me. So I'm fascinated by that idea of knowing when the time is right to do something. So if with rules, right? So if you go with the so-called tradition, then clearly I will not identify in a reading, or I would never pick the Queen of Swords or Queen of Spades to identify me as a significator, right? Because there is a very specific set rule that says that the Queen of Diamonds would be more suitable for that. And why? It's because the Queen of Diamonds is reserved to the ones with reddish complexion, redheads, blondish, but not blonde, because then we have the hearts to designated for that, for the blondes, and we have the brunettes, to go with the clubs, with the natural world, the trees and all that stuff. And then we have the diamonds, with the redheads. There's the spades. They go with the black complexion, or the very dark complexion, dark hair also. So I don't fall in that category according to the physical characteristics that some so-called old traditions prescribe. So I fall with I go with the Queen of Diamonds. Profession-wise, having been a professor, in a manner of speaking, I'm still doing what I've always been doing. So the diamonds being associated with the intellect and the nervous system, we have there all the mercurial types, the scribes, so and I'm being a writer, I have no qualms identifying with the Queen of Diamonds. But, when we talk about physical characteristics, then we have the white-haired crones, and the reddish people that they get the privilege of identifying with the diamonds. So in a reading, when I cast a larger tableau, and it's always a good idea to actually have designated significators beforehand, because then you sit there and who the fuck are these people, who am I? Or it's the easy way out. It's well, all of these court cards that show up, they're just aspects of myself, I'm not an advocate for that, because, after all, speaking of egos, I may have a big one or a little one or none at all, depending on where I come from, what day, how Zen grabs me, we can talk about the total eradication of that sort of shit. So, but depending on the circumstance, then you would have to grant that however big your ego is, we still live in relational situations, it's always me against another, me against my family, me against my boss, or not necessarily adopting adversarial positions as such, so it doesn't mean that I have to go and chop heads, when I say against, but we do rely a lot on relational dynamics. So yeah, what am I trying to say? So when you have a larger set, that's what I'm trying to say. When you have a larger set on the table, if anything from 5 cards to all the 52, if you read the whole pack, it's very helpful to pick significators in advance. And the rule of thumb is to just go with the general physical characteristics of a person. And I do that myself because speaking of martial arts, the masters, they have passed down the what they call the kata, this like the method, so there are different moves, if you like, that they advise to incorporating or simply just imitating, to the point of perfection. And then you can do your own thing, mind you, if you want to transcend, as it were, or whatever the master has to say. So so there is always a fundamental ground, that we build our own readings on, or our own we develop our own intelligence in accordance with, if we do use systems. And divination, I mean, and this is one of my pet peeves, my quarrels with others, that they insist that you don't necessarily need a question for divination.
No.
As I pull my hair, because it's like, yeah, okay, good luck to you. I mean, being a person invested in storytelling, and I grant that there is nothing else than the stories that we tell. It's all fine, I can read cards without the question, but for the sake of precision, I never, ever read the cards without a very, very clearly formulated question.
And also, who doesn't have a question, Camelia? Like people who do things like a daily reading, like, well, what are you going to do today? Don't do a daily reading. What are you going to do? Tell me how your meeting's going to go. Like there's,
right.
I have unlimited questions. The idea that you would, why would you not, exactly. Why would you not throw cards? Like if you're going to do whatever, you could be doing nothing and you will still have a question for the day.
Absolutely. But even those who say that, oh, I don't have a question, they're so full of shit. Because the reality of it is, that even as you sit there with your daily, as it were, drawing one card only from the pack, which is a fairly good enough practice, not my cup of tea, but mind you, and it's not for me to judge, people can do whatever the fuck. So, but, even then when you just pull one card from the deck and say, I just want this card to describe my day, there is already an implicit question, isn't there? Because, when you pull the card, you simply just want to say, how will my day go? And if you follow up on that, you end up with the other aspect of it, where you have to think, well, actually, I want to know something about my attitude. What would be good for me to do? So you can see that, the ways in which the brains work. I mean, we always seek some goddamn value from whatever it is that we do or engage with. So, so all those say, oh, I don't have a question. When I do dailies, I don't need a question. I just pull a card from the deck. And I'm like, yeah, go fuck yourself, because that is so not true. You do have a question. It's just that it's implicit. It's not explicit, but it's there. You actually want to know something about how the day is going to go, or else, how you are going to cope with it if shit hits the fan, or else, you want to know that you can just relax. So it all comes down to then assessing or reading the card according to this more implicit desire, to know how to go through your day, adopting a particular attitude. So is that a question, or is it not? So, usually what I do when I hear those claims, I just like laugh, It's very entertaining. Those kind of certitudes, they entertain the crap out of me.
Yeah.
No, you don't need the question. Oh, yeah. And I'm like, yeah, okay.
Well, so one of the things I love about playing cards, and I owe a lot of this to you, is it doesn't allow you to hide quite so easily as you can allow the tarot you can hide in the tarot. So people who pull a one tarot card
what is my day going to be like? They're essentially asking like, who is going to rescue me, or how can I hide, or how can I hide from reality today? It's they don't want to be involved in the comings and goings of life. And I think playing cards, you can do that because you will find a list of traditional associations, the ace of, this one means you get a letter. This one means, so you can find traditional, well, not even traditional, you can find fixed meanings that have accrued to them over time. But I think one of the things I love about it is it's so transformative that it doesn't let you hide. And a big part of it, I want to come back to significators, is that because the other place I think beginning tarot cartomancers hide is that the court cards are aspects of the self. And I used to hate when court cards would show up. It was very beginning tarot reader, like 20 years ago, because how can that be? I'm only 25, but you know what I mean. I used to hate when the court cards would show up because I didn't know what to do with them, because I didn't want them to be people. And I think with playing cards, well, I know with playing cards, they are people. And it forces you into realizing that it's the cut and thrust of relation. It's human lives and human doings. And I think, do you think that's it? Do you think that the significators are, I don't want to say more important, but are they more transformative or essential in playing cards, you think?
Well, I don't know. I mean, I'm a little maybe not so keen on the transformative thing, though I granted that the transformation is big business, right? And everybody wants to have it. But it's like, with me, it's like, well, you are transforming as we speak, but by the law of impermanence, you are not the same person that you were 5 minutes ago. So, so that's already there by default, So I make such a big holy cow out of transformation. I don't know. So I'm not, my leanings don't go there, where I want to say that the court cards are more transformative, or the archetypes of the tarot have a bigger transformative power. So I don't operate to that vocabulary. Consciously, I make that choice not to go there. But what I say is that it always goes back again to the question, right? So sure enough, if your question, let's give an example, because that's the best way of illustrating. If your question, say, is precisely one about attitude, and say, oh man, I just need to know, how I can deal with this particular issue, so what should I charge, or should I, with playing cards, for instance, I read a lot for people who played on the stock market, right? So, and then it's important to know, like, do I charge, or do I wait? Do I, this company goes public tomorrow, like, oh man, there is so much hype, so what am I going to do? So it's all about action or non-action. So, so when we have a question of that nature on the table, which is 100% about what you can do. And I say, I throw down 3 cards and I get 3 goddamn court cards, right? And then you think, oh, wait, how am I reading these cards now? So here's the Queen of Spades, and then here is also the King of Hearts, and then here is also the Jack of Diamonds. So these are all 3 people. So you see, in that case, what I do, I simply take the 3 court cards to say something about my particular attitude towards playing the stock market today in such a manner as these 3 court cards exhibit at the level of the functions that they each fulfill. So, so I don't operate with what's more transformative, or do I see these other court cards that showed up in my spread as other people? Because, lo and behold, that was not what my question was about. I didn't ask a question about the relations. I didn't ask a question about what I should do about my imbecile boss, right? In which case I would take the Queen of, sorry, what did I say? The King of Hearts in this example. I would have to bend myself, so maybe he's not as bad as you think, because with the King of Hearts is a benevolent kind of figure. So there you have it. So I would have to engage in a process of self-reflection even there. But then I would say, okay, I'm the Queen of Spades, because, it just happened that if I don't pick the significators in advance, that is to say, and I don't always do that when I just do a 3-card spread, so actually to link it to your initial questions, you are the Queen of Swords because you have so many spades in the house, swords in the house. That's true. So so I don't, when I have just the 3 card down, I don't necessarily think, oh, I'm always the Queen of Diamonds, for instance. I don't do that. Though again, just for the beginners, it's helpful to always hold yourself to that basic rule, just until you practice.
I think that's what I meant by transformative. I think because it is, you said it like a playing card reading, you can't hide from the doing generally, but I can hide. I used to be able to hide from the doing in tarot. So like if it was a King of Swords or coins or whatever that showed up, I could try and pretend it was some aspect of myself rather than a person. I could hide.
Yeah.
But,
well, the aspects or the aspect idea, I think that became popular with the rise of the tarot, the popularity, that is to say, of esoteric tarot in the 60s, right? The beginning actually with the Golden Dawn, 1909 with Edward Arthur Waite, and Pamela Coleman Smith on that, and so we have this notion that that there is a higher self, and you have to kind of attain it or make sure you get in touch with all these conversations with your higher self or your holy guardian angel, whatever. They have also a whole set of vocabulary to use. They use to describe, particularly this transformative so-called past, so you are here and you just want to better yourself. So we have, but with the new agers, the 60s, right, the hippies, so the usefulness of the tarot regarding, what we make of the self, becomes so popular because everyone just wants to know something about themselves. And this is true also of today, no matter how pragmatic we are. We say, I just want to just tell me something about myself. I just love to hear about myself. And please make it flattering because I'm having a hard time today. So cards, give me something, right? So you can see how easily it is to fall into that trap when you get all these court cards on the table and you start thinking, well, I'm also on occasion I'm the Queen of Spades. Definitely I'm the Queen of Spades or the Queen of Swords, if we are on the tarot. But I'm also such a woman of action, and then we bring in the Queen of clubs, or the Queen of batons. So so it's so you can construct so easily a narrative that just pleases your soul, like, oh, I can do so many things. So in that sense, reading the tarot with an eye for the aspect of the self can be empowering. But in my own experience, I found that empowering wears off like in 5 seconds. You read the cards and you see yourself as a boom, and as soon as you actually have to step up to some real action, you realize that either you don't have the drive, or you have a shitty Mars day, or you have a shitty Mars transit or something, or your own Mars is either in Aries or in Cancer, or or not Aries, sorry, the other thing, the detriment places, Taurus, or Libra. Oh my God, so then you're fucked, right? So then you realize that no matter how many attempts you make, this cheap empowerment, it'll help you for like 5 minutes, because as soon as you have to step up to some real action and have to engage in a relation with others, then the first thing that comes down is that you need to turn your attention into a very vigilant state. You need to pay attention to how the others move, If you don't do that, in other words, if you don't forget about yourself and how you engage with the world and how you take things personally and how offended you are and whatever, or how, loving for that matter, or the opposite, how hating or resentful, nothing will come out of that relation. So for you telling yourself the story that you can also be like the Queen of Spades and you are also so much like the Queen of clubs and whatever. I mean, it's a nice story, but it doesn't work. It doesn't work. So in my own emphasis, when I read playing cards or any card, I get down to looking at the function of each of these courts And then I remember always, I remember to go back to the question. And as I said, if the question really is all about what I can do on a particular day in relation to whatever it is, going shopping or yeah, playing the stock market, or killing the boss, then I will read all the courts as telling me something about what kind of action I can take, and that includes also the action of not acting, right? That's also an action. Like, okay, not today. Today you're gonna hide, or relax, you're not going to go on any kind of crusade. So however, if the question, as soon as the question involves other agents, then I instantly, think in advance, what court cards may represent these other people, and then I go the physical characteristics simply for simplicity, so it's very, instead of yeah, profession, and yeah, that person could go that, oh yeah, I know that the temperament is like this, so I don't give a fuck about all that. So I simply just go with all tradition. Sometimes traditions are very useful, and when a tradition is useful, I don't have a problem following it. So I go with the physical characteristics, and that's that, and I don't deviate from that. So now you took you took the playing cards course, so then you know what I do with the students. Actually, there was one particular example that made it in the book. I have the books; they all feature tons of such examples, yeah, where students go wrong, and how we can correct the reading. So I don't know if you remember, there was one of the students who just designated the queen of clubs and the king of clubs for herself and her lover that she had a falling out with, and then she cast a 9-card tableau, right? And then she gets all the spades. She gets the queen of spades and the king of spades on the table. So in the middle of the reading, she just decided, oh well, I'm just gonna shift lanes. So I'm just gonna see myself and my lover as the spades, because they're the ones that showed up. And I thought, well, sometimes you can do that, mind you, but there has to be a strong motivation in place for you to do that. Otherwise, if I were to come after you and say, what motivates this choice? Huh? Why disregard the fact that this couple here, the policing couple, if you like, the king and queen of spades showed up instead of your designated significators. So what bugged her was that she didn't get any of the significators that represented her or her lover, right? And that's a conundrum. So, oh wait, I thought I was reading about me and my lover. So what the fuck, So who are these other people? I don't like it that the spades came instead. Oh, that must be us. And see, this is where I step in and say, no, not necessarily, or don't be so quick with your guns. Why don't you just reflect a little bit? Because the spades, they have a very specific function that they fulfill. And then, in the course of that discussion, it also turned out that the man was from Africa, and I was also like, wait, why did you pick the clubs if the man is a black man, from Africa, and said, you should have picked the spades already. Well, yeah, it's because, and with the professions, right? Well, he's doing this thing. Oh, he's more like the man of action. He has nothing to do with being an official, with a magistrate. Sometimes the spades can also cover that area. So you can always rationalize your choice, but that it's like, okay, that still doesn't make sense to me. We already have a set rule there. So the first 4 powers to pick the wrong significators, and then shifting the lens, and then it turns out that, well, he also has parents, and she being an Asian woman, I said, well, could it be, maybe, just maybe, could it be that the king of spades and the queen of spades represent his parents? Maybe they're not so keen on their black son, marrying or dating an Asian woman. I mean, have you thought about that? Actually, that can happen, especially if the person is from some remote place from Africa, right? Which was what she reported, right? So, so there you have it. So you don't do the sort of thing, you designate significators, and then in the middle of the reading, you decide, oh, I don't like what I saw there. Then my significator didn't show up, and that gives me the lesser story about myself.
Yeah.
And therefore, now I have to look somewhere else. No, you don't. So you still have to make the effort to then read these court cards as representing exactly other people that you may still have dealing with. And then in the course of the discussion, and if we actually push for it and force for more context, sure enough, shit can transpire, and in this case here, it was like textbook, and it transpired that there were so many things, that went wrong with that. So how can you then read to precision if you do that sort of thing, So I'm not an advocate for just anything can go, or this. I can also just say that no, you can't.
I do remember that spread, because it wasn't just that it was the king and queen of spades. The central card was the ace of spades. So like when the slide clicked over in the course, and I was looking at what the student said, I'm like, no, this is a couple that has intervened to keep you apart. Like right in the middle of the spread is a cut. And it's really fun. Like you should never read your own cards when it comes to love, because so many of the examples, people are bending over backwards going, no, it'll be fine. Now I'm the queen of spades and he's the king of spades. And I'm like, no. There is like a cut right in the middle of this whole
that's exactly. And that was so clear, So I love that example. But it goes to show, so there can be other people that are close to you that prevent you from having this relationship, So and it's that simple. So then the common question that I often get is that, but why don't the significators just pop? Because if we go this other notion that, well, cards are a little magical, aren't they? And they always seem to just fall on the table. Exactly. in the same, you have a question, and then I got just the cards. I mean, that happens to me also, but I don't have a habit of marveling so much. I find it entertaining, mind you. But I don't go and say, oh, wow, what are the odds? The odds are always bloody astronomical for what we get here. That's the fun part. And that's why I want to read the cards, because you always operate with chance against a very, more or less rigid method of divination. Yeah. So that tension there between chance and method, that excites the crap out of me. Yeah. So, so I read the cards for that alone. So, when we what did I want to say? Let's see. I'm speaking too fast as usual. The thread just kind of goes off.
No, I know it was because I think this is the other reason I like the people in playing cards. It's if your significators don't show up in a spread, the ones you're expecting, but other ones do. Mm-hmm. That's really good. That gives you an insight into how involved you might be in response to the question, I think.
Yeah, exactly. So that's what I started out with. Thank you for reminding me. So the common question, why have my significators, or at least one of them, did not pop in the spread, when I have them devised beforehand? So my answer to that is that, maybe it's because although you may think that this issue here that the cards describe, especially if we have a 9-card down, that's very popular, by the way, in reading with playing cards. The 9 card hits the nerve always. Also because they're more, it creates more dynamics, that layout, it creates more dynamics, it gives you more information. Yeah. So why you have 9 cards, not a single of the significators that I defined beforehand popped, so why is that, so maybe I can go to the others. No, you can't. So I often say that it's because although you may think it's that the issue is very close to your heart or to your mind or whatever is going on, maybe something else, maybe the circumstance is actually more insignificant, and now you are called to paying attention to how you are subject to some changes or your own circumstance here. So you're not in focus as such. You are only marginal. You are still in the deck, in the cut deck. So you are not on the table, as it were. So maybe you want to take a minute to reflect on how much impact you actually have on this issue at hand that you put on the table to begin with, maybe thinking that, oh, this is crucial. And then the cards tell you, maybe it's not as crucial as you think. Don't flatter yourself. You are not even in the bloody picture, So I always invite all the students to consider that possibility, that you are not even in the bloody picture. So don't flatter yourself indeed. So don't think that everything is about you. So how about you concentrate on these 9 cards as they describe maybe a particular event, or that you are connected with, because obviously the question was about how but you are not in focus. And maybe the ultimate message there can be that, how about you lay down your guns, or how about you just sit on your bench and observe. Yeah, observe. So look at how this shit on the table that we're now looking at unfolds right before your eyes, and then make a decision, or then try and develop or come up with some follow-up questions on what you see is happening right before your eyes. So but I can see that the danger, or it's more like a fretting. It's more like, oh, I didn't get my significator. Oh, that means I can't say anything. And that's wrong. Of course, you can always say a whole bunch. You can. I mean, we have a vocabulary, we have a system. That's again quite rigid, and I like rigid systems, because otherwise, if we get slacking, I don't like slacking. But the wisdom is also, again, to see when exactly you have an occasion for bending the rule, or when exactly you actually might read your significator that you picked in advance. Let's say the Queen of Diamonds, and then the Queen of Spades insists on being that, and then you have to ask yourself, is this an occasion for me now to read the Queen of Spades as an aspect? So I'm not entirely ruling out that possibility, but there has to be a motivation for it. That is to say, you have to think about it. So you can't just like, oh, I'm channeling some divine information right now. And I mean, sorry, with all due respect for the channeling people, that's not my thing. Yeah. I don't, I'm with what's in my head.
So
I'm with assessing the contents of my own head. I don't go there with external inputs. I operate with the language that my mother taught me. So, and I know exactly what language is all about. It creates fictions. Words are all fictional. So I don't kid myself, and I don't have any illusions about how we use language. So because of that reality of what language is and what kind of fictions it designates, right? I don't go and seek for any kind of external to my mind whatever idea. Often I hear this, especially with the playing cards. I'm sorry for interrupting, you wanted to say, but let me finish this. I hear this thing before I forget, because I forget. I hear this thing, especially with playing cards, that they hold some special status. They're magical, they're more magical, because you can channel more, or you can all of a sudden sit there and think, man, that's so not me speaking. That came from somewhere else. And I'm like, once I had this, with somebody, went to their distress, because I kept drilling them, and then say, yeah, and then what happened? Yeah, and then who was this? Well, it transpired that it was the goddess Sekhmet.
right.
Oh, I said, okay, the goddess Sekhmet. And you just know that. Well, yeah, it just, I can't explain it working, but it was clear to me that it was the goddess Sekhmet. And I'm like, okay. So, it was the goddess, but I have news for you. You see, if somebody out there in the big wide world had not put these words into your mouth, goddess Sekhmet, in other words, it's your cultural competence, that speaks through, right? Your ability to recognize that story or that myth, that there are these Egyptian deities, and then maybe you just got grabbed by some excitement, and then you sit there with your playing cards and say, oh, wait, actually, that's so not me speaking. That's the goddess Sekhmet that just came through, so these notions of what shit comes through. And then we have names for that. And I'm like, yeah, and we're still there with stories. I mean, this is not an external thing to your head. Get it? So, and then people have a quarrel with me because they hate my guts, because I go there and I dismiss all this, and in the name of language and in the name of the reality of language. So that's why I always say there is nothing that comes through, that's not already informed by what you are capable of recognizing at the level of your own goddamn cultural competence, or else indeed your ability to recognize in a set context, what each symbol possesses or how each symbol is invested with some power, symbolic power, mind you, not anything else. But so we always operate with that. We don't operate with anything that's external to what our minds can project. Yeah. So at least that's my positioning. So some have an issue with that because they still want to hold on to that the illusion, I would call it, that there is definitely a world of spirit out there. And it's like, no, if there is a spirit, it's because you have language, you have words to name it. If Lucifer comes through for you, it's because you happen to have learned something about Lucifer, So thank you, Lucifer. I mean, you know what I mean? So so there you have it. So what is it that we have that's not already right under our nose? So, when I read cards, I always read with these reflections in mind, and I don't deviate from anything else. I don't get seduced by the idea that, oh, I'm sitting here with channeling. Yeah, thank you very much. Right. So,
No, it's
there
all
you
good
go.
because one of the things I loved, I think it was in the tarot course, but it stuck with me over the years. And it's sort of that point because it's almost like it's two things. You're talking about you like simple systems and you like to sort of let the rigor of a system do its thing. And one of them that I learned is you just read the cards. And if you read the cards, just what's on them, you are never wrong because all you're doing is reading the cards. So it's this sort of moment of rather than diving into, I don't know where that came from, that must be the goddess Sekhmet and so on. It's like, look, you can after the session go and get a diary and write about that stuff if you want, but it seems like the actual the potency of fortune telling with cards is if you Queen of Swords it, get rid of everything and just read what's on the cards, and that's the process. And if you get in the way of it, you're only doing yourself a disservice. Like it's wonderful to have that kind of big imaginal experience, but I think that it just gets in the way,
Absolutely. Well, with systems, I mean, there's so many, and there's so many purists out there. Oh, they're the most entertaining, man. Well, also, especially in the fortune telling clubs, let's put it that way, they will insist that it's all about your capacity to predict accurately, right? And you will find many who will want to claim percentage, and say, oh, I predict accurately. And then often the argument, so-called argument, is that they are channeling, and the wise ones, they are channeling the wise ones. That's the line. So, and I'm not even kidding. I'm not even being sarcastic. This is shit that you encounter on a daily basis in these circles, right? The wise one, I'm channeling the wise ones. and that therefore false correlatives galore. And therefore my predictions are always about 98% accurate, and I'm like, I'm pulling my hair or else I'm thoroughly entertained, and then it's like I can just tell how events will go with the playing cards being invested with this magical, mystical, whatever. And then they go and then the other argument, so-called, is that there is this fixed tradition. Oh, you see 3 8s down, 3 hearts, all number 8, the 8, or you have 3 8 cards, number 8 cards in a spread. That means you're gonna buy new clothes. Oh, the number 3 cards, if you get 3 of them red especially, then it's a kiss. I mean, like, and then you have a whole catalog, of so-called spirit, that will tell you how to read combinations like that. 4 aces means this, and 3 dames or 3 queens, that means quarrels. We're going too much yakking, right? 2 are good, but 3 is bad news. 4 is a disaster, right? And things like that. So there is some common sense to this to an extent, until you get to the very notion of certitude, like, oh, I see 3 8s and then I'm gonna go and buy new clothes. So usually I tell my students, can you ever hear yourself saying shit like that in a divination session? I mean, I hope, for God's sake, I hope not, but the purists out there, they will say that is what does it. That is to say, that is what makes their predictions so accurate 98% of the time, because they hold themselves to that sort of thing, right? And you yourself, that, oh, you're just making it up. Or else, sometimes you're also accused in the same breath, of both making it up and also taking from other systems. That's the one that entertains me the most. Yeah. And I'm like, which one is it? Can you make up your mind? Am I taking shit from other systems, or am I just inventing my own systems? And you are objecting to both. People have so many certain ideas about what you do, in this case what I'm doing, or else, generally people have very, rigid thoughts about how you read the fortune telling cards in a particular way, so that you can be sure to tell everybody that your predictions are so much better than all the other phonies out there. So I don't have I don't even go there, where I listen to this kindergarten discourse, where it's all about comparison, it's about comparing this and you do this and the other one is not doing that, and I'm like, why don't you write your own books and then let's hear about that one, I mean, like, if it's so if you're so worried about how I am busting systems here because I keep holding people to just reading the damn cards, so to go back to what you're saying, read the damn cards. But, the reading of the damn cards presupposes, however, there is a catch here, you won't just read the damn cards unless you are willing to actually go with what you see is represented there at the level of how we have these 4 suits very cleverly stylized, to 4 main core dimensions, with the hearts. Yeah, we have a good time. Maybe it's about our health, our own inner organ. If the heart isn't pumping right, guess what? You're going to find yourself at the doctor's, right? With the spades, you dig the earth. With the clubs, you build. Yeah. Or else with the diamonds, you make transactions. Now, this is, however, the case in the Anglo-American world. As soon as you shift to the French, oh, you will hear that, the spades, the trèfle, yeah, they are all about good luck. They're associated with the clover, right? The trèfle, the very word itself, yeah. So, and while the diamonds, the carreau, for the French, it's associated with death downright, rester au carreau, the French say that means you're fucking dead on the pavement, you are exhausted, right? So you can see, without making recourse to do your own geography and local knowledge of how we name these cards, you cannot actually read the damn cards. So that's the catch, so you have to be able to recognize what cultural competence informs the reading of a particular symbol that we invest, or rather stylization. Here with the cards is more, with the playing cards, we talk more about stylizations of 4 dimensions, 4 functions, than with the tarot, that can go into some other more metaphysical areas, right? So here you really have to hold yourself to the 4, and then you realize also, man, whoever did this was a very smart person. Yeah, I mean, we work, we fuck, we love, we hate, and then we police others, or we put the fence up. I mean, at all these 4 suits that we find here in the playing cards deck or pack, it's our life. all of our life is there. So so when you have them together, that's when it becomes interesting. When you have to see these suits coming together and aided also by the agency of the court cards, that's when it becomes interesting, because that's when you can come in and add to your own recognition of the symbolic value or functions. You can add your own narrative as to what you make of the cards and why, because you have a question, and the questions are always quite individual, even when they are common. You say the question of, does he love me or not? That's my favorite, actually. I'm not even laughing, and I think I mentioned this before. So but there are always very interesting variations of that question that can transpire during a divination session. So you read the cards always with that question at the back of your mind, and then you press against the background of the culture, of your own locale, your own geography, so if you are with the French, so in my book here, when I introduce the reading of the playing cards, I don't go French, and I don't go German either, with these so-called schools, right? The French especially, or in fact all the others, there are all some derivatives of Etea's fortune telling manuals, they came up with, they published around 1760, right? So we have everything that we find that we call tradition is actually just a spin-off. It's a bit like with the grimoires, there is the Verum grimoire, and then there is the the Key of Solomon, blah blah, and then there is the Honorius, so they are all spin-offs of something, and we're all trying to reconstruct, if you like. In this case here, it's easier because we actually have Etea's books, so it's very easy to trace back, the tradition of how we read cards and combine, what we make of 4 aces or what to make of 3 queens together, or when we're talking about the kiss, and when we're talking about some impaling situations. So all these rote memorizations, all of it goes back to that, to Etea's manuals, right? However, we do have a problem when we have to shift from seeing the clubs, as seeing the clubs as a representation of work, to seeing the clubs as a lot of money. To me, it makes no goddamn sense. It makes more sense when I operate with English playing cards, right? And I see diamonds are diamonds to me. I mean, I'm sorry, I can't go with the French, and I can't think of diamonds, killing my soul, unless we talk about the corruption that money can have an impact on, on our own human nature, if you like. So I don't talk about, to me, just that with diamonds, that's something that's invested with a lot of value. What do you do with that? You sell it and you buy it, and, you use it as a transactional tool or a device, and with all these sticks, I hope I can build a solid house, with the spades, if somebody irritates me, then here is a slash, or else, sometimes I need to bury some shit in the ground. Yeah. So I mean, it's all there. So I go that system, and I go the recognition of the symbols on each card, and as they relate to my own vocabulary. I recognize diamonds as a thing of value. That's that simple. Yeah. So for the French, they will say, "Oh my God, here is the coffin." Yeah. So it's the exact opposite, right? It's the exact opposite. So what are you going? How do you reconcile these things? So which tradition is more true? That's why I laugh so much about all the objections that come from the purists, or whoever elevates themselves to some pontificate throne.
So I think whatever you want to call it, reading like the devil is the oldest and the truest one, even if you invented it a few years ago, because the first person to put some cards down in a tavern somewhere in Italy 900 years ago in response to a question didn't have fixed meanings. They just saw, oh, there's a lot of polo sticks or whatever. Like, they're actually matching to what they knew in their culture, what was on the cards in response. And over the course of that kind of 900-year journey, you can go through Germany and France and Spain, and all the, as you say, that 3/8 means this, or this card means you're going to get a letter, all this kind of stuff accrued to it. But I think reading the damn cards is the oldest, don't you?
Absolutely, but to an extent, this also goes back to the oracular tradition, which, and much of it rests on the formulation of poetic lines. You just look at what you see, and then you let the description of what you can come up with in words, inform the oracle, as it were, right? And sometimes it can sound like something that doesn't make any sense, and sometimes it just hit a nerve, right? So when you just read the damn cards, what you do again is you just make recourse to your own capacity to recognize that something arises that you label as an event, right? What's happening? Right? That's the first question. What the hell is happening here? And you start to that description, very basic, right? And then how does it make you feel? Because most of us, since we are not Zen, alas, we still indulge our emotions. We so like to go with feelings. Feeling, yeah. But feelings they make good stories, right? So we're always invested in that. What's the event and how does this shit make us feel? Where is it going? Is there a progression? Is there a trajectory? I see the first card, it starts here, and then we have the other thing in the middle, and then it goes over here. So even the sequence of the cards already activates the temporal and causal mind that we all are stuck with. There is always causality. Our mind decides this happens because of this other thing, right? So it all comes together in that fraction of a second when you recognize linguistically, mind you, again, yeah, when you recognize what is happening. You just describe the cards. But this is the first rule in poetry. I was a literature student for many years, right? So one of my first professors, and actually it was the Columbia University and French department, Michael Rifatel, he died a few years ago. So he was one of the best literature professors I've ever had, So he would always start with that, So everybody thinks that reading poetry is so difficult, and it's very similar to what we do with 3 cards. It's like 3 lines, or you have 3 disparate images that seemingly have nothing in common. We have 3 metaphors. Oh fuck, what am I going to do though? So I have to link them somehow, right? So one of his lessons was to actually go to that very basic question. Well, what is happening here? Can you just read that line? Read it as it is and take it at face value before you start imposing any interpretations. So so we go back to the basic here in the read like the devil method is to activate the experience of what you see in this unfolding of the event. So that is to say, the experience comes before the interpretation. Yeah, how the hell do you experience seeing that the tower is falling? Or that indeed you see the king of swords there, or the king of spades, that very unsettling device in his hand, ready to impale your goddamn head or slash it, right? So you will instantly recognize that picture as having to do with an unsettling of your emotions, right? Oh, I don't feel so good about seeing this. So exactly. So, but all of this is related to the oracular power of language. This is how it all started, and people would go to see the oracle at Delphi or wherever, yeah, reading the stars and the bones and the grains of sand. I mean, you can go all the way back. I mean, you know more about this than I do. So how there is almost a lineage, if we want to operate with our vocabulary, that has been unbroken. That ultimately, in my own understanding, prioritizes exactly that, the experience of what you see unfolding under your own eyes, and then the investigation into how that experience makes you feel, right? Enrique has also picked up on that, so I always refer people to his work also because he also completely consolidated a very so-called method, what is happening, how does it make you feel, so his tarology book is also pretty much about, in a more sophisticated way, though I would say, how you recognize lines and shapes, but that's also because he has been trained. He's an illustrator, right? So he knows graphics, right? He knows geometries, right? So he can identify a blob or a dot against a line. So he's very good at that. So but the basic is always that, oh, you see this inflated balloon here as against the sharper thing, the line, right? The dot and the line. 0 and 1. I mean, this is the shit that we operate with. It's nothing else. And when we look at the cards, what we and some are more conscious about it. Some say, but this is all unconscious, so the cards suggest that what we ever operate with is never anything but shades, shadow, light, lines and dots. Here is a blob as against a lot of white space, your negative space, and all of these activate something in you at the emotional level. Nobody likes clutter, even though some might claim that they like a lot of things to surround themselves. I don't know. And the reality of it is that we are much more attracted to white rooms and empty rooms, and there is something that regarding that emptiness, that affects our emotional core, right? So instantly we realize that, oh, maybe the demons have left me for a for a minute. Why do people go to the Japanese Zen temples, to experience this, like, oh, finally I put the demons behind me. Thank you very much, So that emptiness, So we respond to shades, um, the heaviness of light, so heavy and light and speed. Something is slow, something goes faster, hot and cold. So it's with this that we begin a reading, not with this means that. 3/8 means that you're going to buy new clothes. I'm like, and mind you, and then I'm like, again, I'm pulling my hair when I hear others saying that is the tradition that we must hold on to and protect, because it comes from the so-called wise ones. And I always say, who are these wise ones? Can somebody please put some names on these wise ones? Who are these people, right? And nobody can tell you, because, oh, well, that's just the spirit world. Okay. So yeah.
As you were talking then, it made me realize, and thinking back to the story of having clients that are investors in the stock market and so on. You've got 3 books in this series. You've got a Marseille Tarot book, you've got the playing card book, which you're talking about, and an upcoming Lenormand book. Do you have a favorite? And if not, I'd like, how do you pick what cards you're going to use for a client in a session? Do they pick, or do you just think, this is going to be a tarot or a trumps only, or a playing card, or what have you? What's the thinking that goes into that? Do you have a favorite, and how do you decide?
Well, to tell you the truth, I always make the decision completely in accordance with what is put on my table at the level of the question. What is the question? how is it phrased? So I always hold people exactly to the way in which they phrase their question, because I need that to concretize my message, right? So I'm very particular about the way in which a question is phrased. So depending on how people phrase the question, then I make the decision as to what cards would go with that. Though on occasion, if these are returning clients, who have tried just about readings with all the cards that I can think about, if they have a suggestion, and if they say today I think I prefer that, then I don't have an issue, So I go with the Marseillaise as against the playing cards or the Lenormand, But as a general rule, they defer it to me, so which is nice, flattering to my fortune telling ego, you see. Oh, you decide, they say, you decide, so I decide.
Yeah, but does that mean there are categories of questions that are better suited in your experience to tarot versus playing cards?
Well, I won't, and you say, which one do you favor? I don't really have a favorite. So, and I don't want to say that I pick the cards all in accordance with how spirit moves in me, the holy dove or whatever, the Holy Ghost, which I can also be, as it were, culturally speaking, open to that symbolism, say, today I feel like reading with the playing cards, for this question that yesterday, mind you, I read for exactly the same question. If we talk about the stock market, for instance. But it very much depends on how we phrase the question, So, for instance, just to give you an example, if people ask just of difference of the variations, if people ask about portfolios, so some have portfolios on the stock market or whatever. So then they want to know, so which portfolio will fare better, or what, in terms of value. There's always value, So I tend to pick the playing cards for questions like that. because it's like it's a snappy thing. So a question of value. Thank you. I want to see diamonds in my spreads. As many diamonds as possible. If I don't see the diamonds, I say, oh fuck, this is not going so well, right? So it's very easy. So I don't have to think about action so much. So if I have a question, however, about, do I sell my stock or should I buy this other thing? Yeah. Then I may pick the tarot for that, because then I can look at some of the big trumps, and then I can get more nuanced information as to what is happening, with that particular stock, and whether it is better to wait, let's just say, or how much to wait, although the playing cards can also answer this type of questions just as easily. But often if I have a question that's loaded with some personal action that we need to take, or that the people need to take, then I may go with the tarot.
Yeah.
And usually I just do readings with the trumps, not the full pack. Though if I need to clarify some things, then I pull, generally I just pull two extra cards from the full pack, so that I also have the pip cards in play.
Well, so
pip cards and court cards.
That was going to be the next question, but I think that's right. So I read for someone a couple of weeks ago, and I love playing cards. I think it's a mood thing. So I'll go several weeks, and I'm actually with a friend of mine, Colin, creating a Lenormand deck at the moment. So I've been working with the Lenormand quite a bit, but I go through phases where I just want to do playing cards, because I find it really relaxing when you have a tableau in front of you and you've got most of the information already in that first second, because it's like there's a lot of red, or is it going from red to black, is it going from black? Like I've got the speed and the yes no, and I find that just really comforting. But I did a reading for a friend who she was looking at whether she would adopt or go into the foster parent system, adopt internationally or go into a foster parent system. And that one is one for tarot. That I wouldn't want to, because it isn't a yes no of should I take this action. Someone needs to rattle around with fears and questions and sit with it. And I think the trumps can give you a weird enough answer, because this is another thing I learned from you, which I really liked, which is when the cards come out and you think, just say what's in your head, even if it's crazy, because most of the time it won't be, and the person across from you will be like, holy shit. That's that sort of coming back to the oracular thing. I think the trumps can do that when the question is fraught like that. That's where my head is at. So I'm glad.
No, I don't know. In this example here, I mean, that now that you put that on the table, I could just easily see myself reading with the playing cards for that, especially when we have yes or no, because, and then it's see the nature of the question. Should I adopt or should I go in the foster institution? So here I would actually pick the playing cards for this.
There you go.
So sorry. And I tell you why, it's because for the adoption, we have the hearts, because the adoption, they say something about the blood relation. So now, of course, in an adoption situation, you say, this is not my child, there is no blood relation, but you do, often people go there, to go through the channels of adopting precisely in order to establish that missing, to begin with, blood relation. They want that. They want that blood relation. So as against the fosters, if I have to make a choice, so I would actually cast a side-by-side 3 card for each situation. Should I adopt?
Yeah.
Or rather, I should put it that way, because I don't like this should I or should I. But if it's an either or situation, then I put a 3 card down for the adoption. And then I put another 3 card down for the foster institution. So now say, if I get a whole lot of hearts for the adoption, then I say, okay, the answer tilts towards the adoption, go the adoption. And then in comparison, if I look at the other, and I also see cards in the foster, for the foster thing, then I will say, okay, this also tilts towards the blood, establishing that blood relation. Yeah. So we go with the adoption. However, conversely, if I saw a lot of spades, and spades indicate the institutional aspect, and when we talk about the foster care as an institution, then I would want to see a lot of spades on the table in order for me to go with that answer and say, actually, the cards suggest that the foster care is more suitable for you because we get more spades. So so when in a situation like this, what you start with, then the basic and fundamental rule is to actually notice preponderance. What kind of suits did you get to begin with more of? Yeah. So if you get more hearts, then go with the blood relation, the adoption. If you get more spades, then go with the institution, the institutional aspect, the foster care, which is that has that distance. This is not my child, but I will care for it as if it were my own, or whatever the narrative, right? But there is still that distance, So and the spades would instantly suggest that distance. Yeah. You do the proper thing, and you formalize this relation in a different way than if you were to step up to the father and mother, parental, whatever, force. So the playing cards here would just instantly, give you that answer without creating any kind of extra ambiguity. So with the tarot, I mean, of course, you can also do that with the trumps. It can also give you an indication, but there may be some other type of ambiguity that could arise. Especially if you were to do a 3-card side by side and then compare, and then simply say, okay, which of the three of this 2 situations looks better, and then absolutely looks like, well, I got the Empress for the adoption, and I got the force, maybe, because there is always some struggle there, or whatever, and then I got the Hermit. So let's see if we can educate these kids, or whatever, from also, however, also from some kind of distancing position. Or let's investigate into what they are like, these children that we take into our house that are neither of our blood or whatever. So there can be a number of things that you can reflect on and then go with that, Whereas, if you go to the Tower or some of the other nasty cards, for the foster care, that's the institution. So then you say, well, I can't impose any so-called negative meaning on the presence of the Tower for the solution, because that is exactly what I'm asking about, right? So
and
how
also
does
in
that
the
go?
Marseille, it's literally people leaving the Tower. So you could be like,
exactly.
you're getting some kids out of the Tower.
Yeah, that's it. So, but of course, the so-called negative, can be exacerbated if you have some other nasty cards next to the Tower, and if you had the Devil, for instance, next to the Tower, so, oh man, there's some trouble. Yeah, there's going to be trouble in the Tower. So then you want to say, I'm not so sure that you will be enjoying being in the Tower. So why don't you go with the other option? So of course. I mean, the cards can offer a different kind of storylines that you can pick up on and develop, and the difference is only there, not in what we make of it at the end of the day. It's just the type of information that we receive, but the cards will answer either, But just in this example here, I thought, oh, actually, I would have gone with I would have gone with the playing card, because preponderance, sometimes I often in a teaching situation, and speaking of the fundamental principles that we go through, or the books go through these fundamental principles rather than immediately jumping at this means that, the dictation style stuff, as I said at the beginning. I'm not interested in dictating. I'm interested in teaching, we just have, what did I want to say? We just have these situations where we need to make some preliminary observations, when we ask what is happening. So the first thing is like, do we have a blob, or do we have a line, a dot, or do we have more reds? Do we have more blacks? Okay, so how do we, instantly we get a message right there. Some would call it subliminal, although I'm not with these words, or the unconscious. What's fucking unconscious? Nothing is unconscious. You see it right there in front of your eyes. What's unconscious about that? So you're gonna just pick on what you see, if you are open to seeing the obvious, that is to say. So and then we have number progression, we have speed, we have the sense of cold and hot, we have what is missing. One of the objections that I often find myself making in a teaching situation is when I see students asking a question about money, for instance, and then they get a lot of hearts, and then they get excited because, oh, so the answer must be yes or thereabout. It tilts towards the positive, right? Because we have all these hearts, and then I go like, yeah, you just asked about money, right? And we see all these hearts. How does that make you feel? I tell you this, it would make me feel a whole lot better if I saw the goddamn diamonds on the table, not the hearts. So one of the basic rules here, the basic principles that we must go to is actually to make this type of observances, like the preliminary observations that say, what's missing? So you don't even start with identifying what is the case. You simply just like the question. What was the question about? Was the question about love and you get a lot of diamonds? Yeah, well, maybe that's not a good thing either, because maybe that gives you an incentive to think that what you call love is actually fraught, by some desire for status, for money, for security, and this other kind of thing, right?
Yeah, that's the preponderance stuff is the things that you can learn from playing cards almost instantly. As you say, like you can get 1 is a little, 10 is a lot, but out of that you get speed, you get distance, you get approximately yes, approximately no, what is missing, even before you kind of drop down to the next level of like, okay, and who is in this spread? It's there's just a tremendous amount of intelligence that I think is a potency of the system, right? Before you even get into who's doing what, you have meteorologically, you have all this information about what's just going on in the world of the cards. So with that in mind, this is a similar question. You mentioned you would have done 2, 3 cards, and similar things can be done with tarot. Are there, I know how you feel about the word spreads, but you know what I mean. Are there spreads you use more with playing cards than others? I mean, I guess, do you find yourself doing more of a 3 card than some follow-up cards with the playing card system, or does that go more towards like tableaus? What do you think?
Yeah, well, it's a good question. With the Marseille, the general rule is that I cast 3 cards and that's it. Or I go for speaking of spreads, I go for the classic, 3 cards down for a description of the situation, and then if I want action, then I put 1 card on top, do this, and then 1 card at the bottom, don't do that. So I like to see a contrast, like what's a good idea to engage with and what should I stay away from. So often if you just say what should I do or what are the next steps for me to do, so all these actions, so you put 1 card down and then you say, oh yeah, I got the answer. But at the same time, what I found useful is also to do a contrasting to have a contrasting image, because in your doing you may also end up doing something that may not be so advantageous. So to hold that structuralist dynamics in play, so however reductive, it can give you some extra information. So that would be one of the common spreads that I do with the tarot. With the playing cards, I like to do a 9 card draw. So that's very common, that I do a 9 card draw. And the reason for that is because, a 9 card draw, it gives you the information, it gives you the possibility to see what is happening. And then it also gives you the possibility to activate some of your spatial so-called metaphors, like what the row on top, maybe that's just some shit in my head that I'm thinking about, I'm projecting. The row in the middle, if we go with some form of structuralism again, the row in the middle tells me something about what is really the case, what stares me in the face. And the bottom row, is that which I may be more in control of. So, so you can operate with these metaphors, spatial metaphors, temporality, first column in the past, the middle column, the present, and the last column, the third column, the future. So now, bear in mind that in my own system, I know I don't hold myself to these things as such, because being a little bit zen, I don't operate so much with all these temporalities, causalities, or I like to make something, let's put it this way, I like to make something other out of, my thinking in these terms, than just go there. This is the present, this is the future, this is the past, and this is you, and this is the other. I hate that sort of thing. But, I do have it at the back of my mind, to be honest, and it does inform my reading to an extent. Yeah. But for the general rule, just the rule of thumb, you can do these things with the 9 card. And also, so the 9 card is both good for descriptions and for reflections. And it can also give you an indication of action. So the 9 card can also be prescriptive, right? So we go through 3 movements already, from the descriptive type of question that we can have answered, or we can answer the question with this descriptive markers, then with reflective markers, and then we have the prescriptive markers, more or less a la prediction, like, and this is going to happen because I already see some other dynamic here, whatever. So so the 9 card holds all this information right there. So it's very useful. Sometimes I do a pyramid with the playing cards, So I have a bottom row, and that this is completely up to people's own practice. You can have either 5 cards down and then 3 cards and then 1 at the top, or 7 cards down and then 5 and 3 and then 1. So you create a pyramid, right? And then see the card at the top, as the pinnacle, like here is the your flag, if you like, or else the inverted pyramid, if I want to see, you get a sense of gravity, and it's like, if I have a situation, where is it going, where is it where does it get pulled down towards, so what's the gravity word here, so again, so you always operate somehow with these metaphors, that inform our daily living and practices, with the Lenormand cards, I like to do Grand Tableau. I read the Grand Tableau all the time. Yeah. So, and then the 9 card also, I find also the 9 card very useful. Though a line of 5, I like to read cards in line. So I do a lot of lines with the Lenormand. But with the playing cards, I also like to do lines. And then just read in line. So you just activate your grammar. Subject, verb, object, and then. But when you read in line, the best is to start off with a core question, and then you formulate as you go along. When you're done with the first sentence, as it were, you instantly formulate follow-up questions. Yeah. So the lines are lend themselves to that sort of approach, and it's very useful sometimes to start with the core question, and then you see the cards, and then you can also, the line can also continue. So I'm not talking about a set line of 5 or a set line of 9, so you can just have a line of 7 and then a line of 7 and then another line of 7. So in a way, you are building a tableau, but you build it as you go along. And the lines develop from follow-up questions. Yeah, so that's excellent practice, actually, for fortune telling practice. This is something that I've seen others in Romania do. Speaking of, they don't do it there, even that context has been contaminated to an extent. Though I have yet to see a gypsy who has done any kind of homework. And there are plenty of gypsies in Romania who still do readings with playing cards. So, but what they do is that they activate exactly that what we are talking about. Oh, the swords, that's bad news, right? Many swords, oh, that's even worse, right? That's a disaster. So that's the system, So some people think that, with the Balkan system or the Eastern European system, and then there is the Russian system, and I don't know. When it comes down to it, what you observe is that these people, they simply just operate exactly with that. It's like, oh, many swords, that looks like a disaster. There are some set meanings, but they are all completely, in line with what we call cold readings, So you have some cards that even the gypsies learn that, oh, this is adultery. And then you go in there, and then they don't want any question for you. So this is my quarrel with them, because that's how I know they are so full of shit. So they're excellent narrators. They're excellent excellent narrators. The only trouble is that, that their narratives, they don't go anywhere. But man, I mean, the certitude, the way in which they deliver their message with such aplomb, is something I admire greatly, because like that confidence is like, oh my God, okay. So when it comes down to the substance, there is none. But and then the specificity, that's when I'm talking about they're being full of shit, I'm not even kidding. They go like, and you're gonna die when you're 87, So it's like, I wonder what would happen if they said you're gonna die in 3 months from now, right? So somehow I have as yet to see a gypsy saying that. And of course, that's because they don't want to run the risk of offending, or so. But people they know already that people who just love to hear that kind of thing. Or you are going to marry this person or whatever, so adultery, yeah. And then there is going to be another woman who's going to bust your marriage. And then there are specific cards, especially connected to the swords, that would be related to these set narratives. So there is a lot of rote shit that's thrown onto they read like the devil method, which is like just observing, do you have a lot of swords? Maybe there is a lot of trouble on the table, or on the horizon. Do you see a lot of hearts, or a party, so, and we hold ourselves to that, and then just because you have follow-up questions, you can so easily construct a very coherent narrative at the end of the day. Yeah. But the specificity of some of the things that people come up with, and then especially when there is no question on the table, that's when you're like, oh, okay, so you think you are the oracle. The good luck more power to you if others fall for the crap. I don't have an issue. People fall for, they like to be entertained, and I think most people sadly, they go to fortune tellers because they like to prolong some illusions that they live with. They don't go to fortune tellers for counseling, not in the coaching sense. Another group of people who like to speak with certainties. Sorry to offend, but the ones I have encountered, they just the heralding of certainties is just showers. It's huge, so, and I don't operate with certainties. I'm just looking at pictures, and then I have some cultural competence, and then I'm able to recognize what kind of symbolic power we invest the swords with, in a context of marriage. Yeah. So somebody comes to me and then they want to know whether they are intended will be a good one, or the family, or whatever, and then I get a lot of swords. So what am I going to say? Oh, yes. Go ahead, love is gonna stay there for you. I mean, the gypsy in Romania, they would probably say that that is to say, if they would even allow you to begin with to put a question on their table. More often than not, they actually don't want that, because they prefer to surround themselves with the aura of certainty, because then people say, wow, this woman, she doesn't know a thing about me, and then she told me all these things. And the reality of it is that even when we do have a question on the table, we don't know the thing about people. Like, my sister is a very sharp fortune teller, and we often get together. Now she lives right next to me. But she bought a house here, right 3 steps away. So we often like back in Romania when we grew up, we meet, and then we read cards, so and then when in the course of our readings, and then I realized I don't have the faintest idea about this woman. I don't know what makes her tick. I mean, I know her character, and people can behave in a robust way because they are so inclined, and I can identify a robust behavior, and then I can say she is like that. But at the end of the day, I always retract these certainties, and I say, actually, I'm not even sure. It's better to shut up and not assume too many things. So, this applies to all the other clients that we have. So that's why I always say, we start with the question, but at the end of the day, it's not even the question. It's more like what the question leads the answer. There is no question about that. But at the end, what you do is you just look at pictures in the here and now. That's the only certainty that you can have, and it relates completely to your capacity to recognize certain relations, based on the stylization of these symbolisms, or iconic, because we are dealing with icons, with stylized images. I mean, what is a letter and what is a whip on the Lenormand card? I mean, these are just, icons, right? And they're icons that come from, what we surround ourselves with on a daily basis. What are our concerns? And that's why it's very easy to, some say, oh, it's so much easier to read with the Lenormand cards are so much more literal, and it's like, yeah, right. And the tarot is not, or the playing cards is not. I mean, what kinds of nonsense is this? But I mean, what we do at all times is we simply just look at reading cards is a mirror of our own capacity, of our mental capacity. And that's what have we learned, I heard that there is such a thing as a goddess Sekhmet, and then 2 months down the road, you find yourself claiming that you're channeling the very thing, right? And then if I ask, so how do you, well, yeah, because I feel it so strongly, people go, and I'm like, okay, it's a good story, right? So, and I'm not saying that such a thing cannot have value, there can be a lot of value in channeling Sekhmet, but when we come to what we know in actuality, then I have a quarrel with those who say, I know for a fact that it is not me speaking. Yeah, I know, for a fact. Okay, thank you. I'm out of here. But no, or else keep going. This is very entertaining, right? There is nothing that is outside of our own perception. There isn't a damn thing that's outside of our own perception. Everything that arises is just a projection of our own mental capacity. And some of us have sharper acuity, some of us are more speedy in putting two and two together, if you like, when we are presented with these three icons or three so-called archetypes, or three functions of the court cards in the playing card deck, So that's it. We don't, we have nothing other than the stories we are capable to create. That's where we're at always. So this other thing that's called acknowledging some higher consciousness or some spirit world. You wouldn't even know what the spirit world was if you didn't have the word spirit, or if you didn't have some kind of narrative about such a thing existing. So what of that, So when I turn it that way, it becomes a philosophical and academic discussion, but nonetheless a relevant one, that I always invite my own students to think about, And I would say, always think about what you're saying and why. How do you motivate or back up what you're saying with evidence from the cards? Because that's the only thing you have. You don't have access to other people's heads. You don't have access to a so-called future. And you certainly don't have access to how you can monitor your own internal algorithm for your 98% accuracy in your predictions.
All right. Well, for people who want to just read the damn cards, Camelia, tell them about the books and where they can get them, if they're anywhere but Tasmania, where maybe I'll get mine by Christmas. Who even knows?
Such a damn thing. I told you I would have sent you the goddamn things myself, but I post from Denmark has still not normalized, and I've been having.
It is. I don't mind at all. Like I've done the courses, as you know, so I'm like, the books will get here when they get here.
But if if people go to icorner.press, just icorner.press, then they get all the books there that the Icorner put out. We have a strong divination series, so not just my books, but other people's also. So icorner.press. And then, all my websites, I also list them there. I have a link to books, yeah. So it's easy enough. Amazon, of course. Amazon, though, they irritate me because sometimes they insist on getting stock and then they run out of stock. The first book that came out on the Marseille, so I'm speaking of the listeners, 500 copies just sold in the first week. So that was lovely. So thank you so much, people, So Amazon ran out of stock after 2 days. And then people went like, oh fuck, it's out of stock already. Yeah, what are we gonna do? And then Amazon has to order stock via Ingram because that's the distributor. So it takes a while. Meanwhile, however, I've noticed that Barnes and Noble, they always have the cards because they honor the print on demand agreement. So Barnes and Noble will deliver instantly. Blackwell in the UK will
And
also
now
have the
that's where, for
books.
people listening in Australia, that's where I got my Marseille one from, and it got here quicker than Amazon. So
Oh, excellent.
yeah,
Yeah. So
and
so
the
you know,
post
so
isn't
if
that bad either. So yeah.
Oh, that's great. Yes, I'm glad to hear that. Yeah. So if Amazon behaves erratical, now they have stock and now they don't, and then they invent all this. Not to mention, of course, that they defer or they relegate sometimes when they run out of stock. Then third parties vendors go in there, and then they will charge you $40. I mean, the publisher list price is 25, which is a nice price for books that are 360 pages. Yeah. So solid material. So I know it's not a huge price, but sometimes I also hear this other complaint. Yeah, she's so greedy, like the whole world. Like imagine somebody holding it against you that you work. I mean,
No, it's
imagine
crazy.
that idiocy,
Well,
right?
we're all
It's
just
very
jealous and terrified because you can write
I
one
mean,
book every week. It's crazy. Like keeping up with your books is a joy, but I don't know how you do it. It's taken me 6 months to write one.
but I mean, this is where I live. I'm a writer, so I write, and this is my work, right? So it's a source of bafflement for me to hear that somebody holds it against you that this is your work. Like I'm going to be coming up with this notion next that I'm going to hold somebody against somebody flipping burgers at some joint, that you are so greedy. How dare you flip burgers? How dare you have this work? I mean, like, what's wrong with you? You know what I mean? So such is, and then the world is so stupid. But it entertains us. No, I am thoroughly entertained on a daily basis. Especially when we talk about other people's certainties
Oh
about
yes.
how we are and what we do and all that stuff.
Well,
Yeah.
Camelia, this I love talking to you. I love your books. I love the courses. I'm so excited that they're in books for more people to get into, particularly when it comes to playing cards. If you're listening to this and you haven't done playing cards before, get this book, work this system. It will change how you use all the other cards. It's brilliant on its own. And as I said a couple of years ago when I did the tarot course, we started with pips, which is sort of halfway to doing a playing card thing. This is just a random tip, but if you're at a party and it's like 2 a.m. and you want to impress someone, you're a creep if you bring out tarot cards. But if there are playing cards around because you're at a party and you just start reading playing cards for people, it is the coolest thing. So there's read like the devil. There's sort of be a fortune teller and impress people at parties. I love it. I love your work. I love talking to you.
Thank you so much. Yeah, so the Lenormand people also asked me the Lenormand dedicated book under the signature of Read Like the Devil, the third volume in this trilogy will. If people ask me, they already asked me. It's scheduled for June, so just so that you know. And I already finished even a deck. 8 years ago, I did a nice Lenormand deck, that I called a Helium Poet Lenormand, that I put out there as a limited edition. So as a treat, I have modified a bit the original deck that I created. It's very calligraphic and very minimalist. But I took out my hand-drawn insets, playing card insets, and for the new Helium Poet Lenormand that I will be using for the third volume on the Lenormand cards, I will have the same playing cards, an English deck, that I used for the playing cards book, so again so I'm trying to establish a connection insofar as there are several things that cut across the board, at least as far as the method is concerned, I'm doing the same thing in these 3 books, not something else. So there is an overlap in terms of my stressing of the steps, that we go through. Like you're also saying, first we notice, the preponderance and speed and light and color and number progression and that sort of thing, right? What is missing, and before we get to the point where we deliver the message, as it were, according to more or less set symbolic phrasing. So I'm doing this. So this thing cuts across the board, this sort of method. But then obviously each of these books, they take point of departure in the tarot, in the playing cards, and then the Lenormand cards with tons of student examples. So so it's some real teaching that actually happened. So, and then the same playing cards will feature on my Helium Poet Lenormand, that will also now be part of the third volumes, and the cards that are Goodall and Son, from 1897. So so I'm very excited to share, and then I already finished the prototype for my Helium Poet with these Goodall and Son playing cards insets. And then I hope that I will be able to actually also offer
Amazing.
that deck, together with the book,
Yeah.
And people are very happy for the Helium Poet, but it was such a hassle to create, to make so many copies. So I gave it up, but now I was happy to return to it. So that was just, an aside, or something that people can get excited about, I hope, anyway. So that's it. Yeah.
Brilliant. All right. Well, once again, thank you very, very much. Congratulations on the books, and we'll do this again.
Yeah, absolutely. Thank you so much, Gordon. You are doing a great job. And let me just commend you for getting up at all sorts of odd hours just to sit with your guests. I mean, man, you're full of energy. So thank you for your hard work.